My name is Ronnie Cruz, and this is Path of the Network Marketer. All right, welcome back to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about routines versus rituals. That's right, routines versus rituals. This is a little bit of a pivot from the last few episodes because this is definitely a mindset topic. And it's an important one. I want you to kind of really examine where you have routines and whether those routines have become ritualized or not. Because rituals sometimes can get in the way of progress and creation. Right, we can get really bogged in, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But before that, I want to let you know, I just realized this in recording this episode, that it is officially episode 191. And not that that's anything significant, but it's almost a countdown to 200. Not that I'm going to officially do anything special to count down, but it's crazy. It definitely, I say this all the time, feels like we just turned 100. But to be on the cusp of turning 200 is absolutely bonkers to me. And, moving forward, I've talked about doing a rebrand for the show, and that's happening very quickly. My idea was to do it at 200. I may do it later. I may do it sooner. I mean, I have to decide pretty soon since we're at 91, but that rebrand is definitely coming. I want you to understand that you can still find the show here. You don't have to subscribe to a new show if you're already subscribed to this show, but it is going to be called Redefine. The Redefined podcast with Ronnie Cruz, I'm gonna have new music and obviously new cover art. But just be aware that that's coming. Whether that's gonna happen at 200 or later, I haven't exactly decided. I have 9 days to decide as of this episode. Anyways, all right. So I just wanted to let you guys know, ritual versus routine. Now we all have routines. They're very, very important. I think creating that structure allows you to get things done, and it's really, it's part of the habit structure that creates productivity. Right, that creates productivity. Once you get something under your skin as a habit, then it becomes really much more easier to do in terms of the effort and the willpower that you have to exert. So routines are important, right? Routines are important. Like specifically, let's say for example, I have specific routines around my content creation, right? Monday, Tuesday generally are my content days for recording, and I'll use the same days for editing, post-production, and then publish throughout the rest of the week. That's an ideal situation, of course. Lately, my travel schedule has been nuts, and there's been a lot of adjustment, but that's generally speaking my routine. Now, if you look at my routine in a singular day on one of those days, well, the routine goes like this. I wake up, I get workout in, get the blood flowing, because that really helps, wake up and make that transition from that sleeping state. It gets the brain going during the workout. And for me, I'm the kind of person that has to get the workout in first thing in the morning, right? Or, first thing when I wake up. During the workout, I'll usually be consuming some kind of podcast or education. And that really helps my process. Again, it's part of waking the brain up from the sleep state. Because so here's a side note. I'm a vivid dreamer. I like that. Like, I don't remember the last time I had a night where I didn't dream. So I dream quite often and quite vividly. And that transition in the morning it can be tough, right? Because like you're having a full on day or multiple days in your dream. And you wake up and it's a completely different reality, right? So I have to have the workout, get the blood flowing, as well as the education. So that's part of my process. That's part of my daily routine. And then I'll usually start getting into content creation and other work. I rely on that heavily, because the more you can have a routine, the less effort that you have to put in, especially the mental effort in thinking about your process. I mean, think about your morning routine. Wake up, brush your teeth. Hopefully that's part of your routine, but those are some of your things that are kind of on autopilot. And that's what the routine is for, right? It's really good to have a routine in that regard. Now, the dangerous thing is when your routines become rituals. And the difference between a routine and a ritual is that a ritual is a routine basically, but there's an emotional attachment to it. And I say this is dangerous because if you can't let go of your routine, then it becomes really, really detrimental to your mindset in getting anything done. It becomes actually counterproductive. The reality is, especially for my example, my travel schedule has been completely bonkers, with a lot of unplanned, unscheduled trips to visit my folks, and so that requires a lot of time, to travel to and fro, and it changes my routine, right? It disrupts my routine. Now, if those routines were ritualized, then I wouldn't be able to get anything done, right? Right, it would disrupt my productivity. But because it was just a routine and I'm not emotionally attached to that thing, then I can adapt, and I can change according to my specific needs if those unplanned things happen, right? If those unplanned things happen, which ultimately they do. However, if it was so ritualized, that I can't adapt. And that's the thing about rituals, right? Like, rituals are meant to kind of be there and ingrained, and they're not supposed to change, right? You have your rituals, like religious rituals. They're meant to be there because they've been passed on, and they're meant to ground you and root you in the thing. And that's all well and good for that specific thing. But if your everyday processes are so ritualized and you're so attached to it that you can't function unless you do those things, and in that specific order, then you really gotta detach yourself and work to detach yourself. You really have to work to detach yourself from those rituals, and let go of that emotional attachment to it, because, like I said, change is going to happen whether you like it or not, and sometimes it can come in, just out of the blue, unexpectedly, right? To be able to adapt and change is really, really important. Sure, have the routine, and systematize that structure as much as possible, but be willing to adapt to change. Be willing to adapt to the unforeseen things that ultimately ends up happening in all our lives. So that's the difference between a routine and a ritual. Of course, there are important things that I think should be ritualized. Your spiritual practice, whatever that might be, your religious practice. I'm not specific, personally, very, very religious, but I do have a spiritual practice, and so that's ritualized, right? There are certain things that are ritualized. When it comes to business and productivity, I don't ritualize anything, because I don't want to get too grounded and anchored in that specific routine and ritual that I can't adapt in case I need to adapt, right? Right. So think about that. Think about that in your process. What are your routines, and are they routines, or have you ritualized them to the point that you cannot operate without it? And if you can't operate without it, that's something that you really have to work on, because change happens. Change happens, and sometimes life throws you a curveball, and you have to be able to and willing to adapt to those things, right? So that's the message for today. More from me tomorrow. So until then, be well, be safe. We'll see you in the next episode.